Alright everybody, this is Eternal Blade here and welcome to a new tutorial. This will be episode 1 of the ceiling fan modeling tutorial. So here's our goal for today, is to model a ceiling fan. I just googled a reference image. I will attach it as a link in the description so you guys can grab the same image. So the first thing you want to do is just right click here, go to File Info, and we see this is 1858 by 960. Let's simply go into our front view here, make a plane, and let's give it the same dimensions. So 1858 by 1960. Alright, and you can just do like that. So press E to rotate, A for angle snap, and rotate it 90 degrees. Now go to your material editor by pressing M on the keyboard, and I'll just be using a V-Ray material. You can use a standard material if you like. So drag it out, go to the diffuse map, standard bitmap, navigate to your project folder. So in my case that's over here, ceiling fan, reference images, and here's the ceiling fan, okay? Double click on the bitmap and press this show shaded material in viewport. Now all you have to do is just drag and assign your texture. So here you go. Now you can see the shaded material in the viewport. Now we do need to switch these two values, so this will be 1960 or 960, and this one will be 1858. Okay, there we go. And I guess rotate it back like so. There we go. Press G to get rid of the grid, and now we're ready to start modeling. So we can just go here, press G. So the primary thing we want to do is use a line here. Let's just come up here and start clicking. Okay, and we're just going to sort of drag out the general shape of a fan. So it doesn't have to be perfect. We can do some refining later on. Alright, kind of come over here and let's go up, over, and back to the top here. Alright, and then let's close it off. So we want to close the spline. Alright, now we've got a spline here. What we can do with this is use the lathe modifier and go to the axis, press W, and just drag the axis over like this. That way we get a perfect fan base, just like that. Alright, and you can up the segments to about 32 to give you a bit smoother result. And another good thing we should do is go to editable, edit spline. It'll create a modifier here below the lathe. We can check this show end result on. That way we can press Alt W to expand this view. We can edit our actual geometry here, and it won't mess up our spline at all. So we can do this, you know, we can come here, right click, maybe make this a Bezier corner so we can move the handles just to give it a more sort of interesting look. Alright, maybe make this one a Bezier corner as well. Alright, yeah, that's interesting. Apparently there was an Amber Alert, but anyway, carrying on, let's just straighten this out here. Alright, so now we've got our fan base. Let's simply go in here and make a cylinder. I will just make a cylinder approximately the same size. Press E and make sure you have your angle snap on and rotate that 90 degrees. And we can just drag that right up in there. Now convert that to an editable poly. I use a hotkey Control-Alt-Q, which I have assigned. If you don't have that, you can just simply go to the modifier list down to Edit Poly. Okay, and that should be good for that section right there. So next, I'm going to simply move this back so we can see the reference image. And you can see on the actual image over here, in a little bit better quality, there's sort of a little screw holder there. So we're going to shift drag our big cylinder that we created. Alright, and press 1 to go into the vertex subobject mode, press R, and let's just scale this down. Okay, now I really don't need this many segments in our cylinder, so here just press backspace. I guess that won't work as well as I'd hoped. turbosmooth. Okay, we'll just leave them there for now. Actually, what we're going to do is delete that cylinder. Let's just make a new cylinder right here. Okay, and give it just one height segment. Press E to rotate. It'll just make our lives a little bit easier as we model. Now convert it to an editable poly. Come in here and just expand it down like that. Now one of the things we want to do is just grab the top and bottom edges. So deselect these, and you can see which ones I've got selected here. And we're just going to chamfer these ever so slightly, just to give it a bit of a, well, a bit of a bevel. Just like that, okay? Perfect. Now what we're going to do is add a box here. So about like this. Okay. And we're going to shift drag this cylinder down. Press R, and we're going to scale it out a bit, and then scale it right down to about the size of the box that we made. Alright, just like this. And maybe even a bit smaller. Wouldn't hurt. Okay, now on the box, we're going to shift drag it over to one side. So it'll be sort of in the circle on one side and out on the other. Alright, convert that to an editable poly and just drag this in just a little bit. Okay? Now grab both those and maybe drag them up like so. Now what we can do is grab all of the outside edges of this editable poly here. So I'm just going to deselect all the inner edges and give it a quick chamfer. Right, actually make sure you go into the front view as well, or the left hand view, and deselect all the edges and the top. Alright, let's chamfer that. Perfect, just like that. Now what we can do is scale that piece in just to get a little thinner. Now we're going to shift drag it over and duplicate it, leaving a little bit of a gap there. Okay, now we're going to create a cylinder. You can use auto grid for this, right here on the end. Okay, convert it to an editable poly. Select the topmost face here and bevel it, just kind of making sort of a little screw cap. Okay, just like that. Now let's take this out. Okay, deselect the back face there, delete. Alright, and now let's add a symmetry modifier. Alright, and that's going to need to go on the Z axis, and there we go. Now we have a perfect bolt we can work with. And it's not, it doesn't need to be super high poly or anything, so just put that axis right in the middle there. Go to your editable poly in the vertex subobject mode, and just drag it in, just like that. Right, that way we'll have a nice little bolt there, and then you can center it up. Actually, I guess it'd be a screw. You can center it up as well. Excellent. Now let's grab our main pole here that we had already modeled and just drag that over into the center as well. Okay, perfect. Now what we can do is go to our front view here and begin to model the fan base. So the way I'm going to do this, I think, is I'm going to do a cylinder. Actually, we're just going to copy this cylinder here. And maybe this one. Well, you know what? We're going to make a new cylinder. That's the best way. So turn off auto grid, make a new cylinder, just kind of somewhere in the center. Alright, so let's just size it up here. The radius, I'm using centimeters here. Mine turns out to be about 200 centimeters. Now, it's not to scale. I'm just sort of following along with this drawing. Now we're going to drag it down just so we can see what we're doing. So the height segments is good. So let's convert this to an editable poly. Go into our polygon mode here. And in the top, we're just going to do some bevels. Okay, so we're just going to kind of bevel it out, bevel it up a bit, bevel it in, and then give it another bevel in. Alright, and in the bottom, we're going to do almost identical to what we did there. So bevel it out, bevel it down a bit, bevel it in a bit, and again. Alright, now this one has, it looks like, sort of two bevels, so we're going to do that. Alright, just like that. And now all these little rings and such here. Let's inset this kind of to about ring height. All right, maybe give it a bevel here just to sort of break up everything. Okay, something like that should work. And then give it another inset here, inset there, a big inset, and a little inset. And then let's do some bevels just to kind of break up the form here a bit. Now you can see if I drag this up, you know, how big our bevels are. So we're sort of right in line with this inner edge right there. All right, so we're going to start beveling this up. Okay. And that should be perfect. Okay. Now, if we grab all of these polygons here, so let's actually click and ring these, control click, and we'll have all those polygons. We can inset and by polygon, okay? And make the inset amount relatively small. All right, and let's see how I want to do this. Okay, so make it relatively small. Okay, press R, and we're gonna scale on the local axis here. We just want to scale these to where they're a bit longer. And actually, the best way I think is to do vertices here. And let's deselect all the outer vertices. I'm not sure if this is going to work. We're going to just sort of go with it. Okay, just like this. In fact, I think I'd rather do this another way. So if this fails, we're going to try it another way. Alright, and let's just scale all these inward. Oops, I've got an extra vertex there. Scale them inward. Okay. And let's grow that and deselect all the inner vertices. So we can actually use this circle tool here and deselect all the inner ones. Okay, and then scale those outward. Right, now select the polygons and shrink it, and I guess that won't work. So you just click the inner polygons here. Right, press F3, it'll make it a little easier to select them. We clearly had a mistake there. We'll deal with it in a second. So sometimes if you mess up, you can get mistakes like that. So we're actually just going to extrude these up. Okay, and then inset them all just a little bit. Okay, now let's deal with our mistake here. So we need to simply, what do we need to do? Let's delete that polygon, delete that polygon. All right, so we have, I think we have all the necessary geometry here. It's just a little messed up. Okay, so just go to border, click that, and press cap. And there we go. Now we're sort of back to where we started. So now what we need to do is just make these vertices match. If I were you, I would definitely go back and redo it so it's perfect. But we're trying to go for speed here, so we're just going to let it go. Right, so sort of drag those up. And maybe make them a bit bigger there, just so they match. Okay, perfect. Now grab your polygon, extrude it up to about the same level as the other ones. So there we go. And give it the small inset that we gave the other ones as well. Perfect. All right, now what we need to do is grab these and press loop. And we need to do that for all of the, actually, which polygons do we have selected? Okay. Let's just grab one of each of these, and the reason we need to do this is so when we turbo smooth it, it doesn't go crazy and just mess up. So we're just going to grab all of these lines here, just working our way along the outside of the fan. Okay. And we're almost done. It can be a little tedious. I think I could have looped this, but press loop. Alright, so now just make sure you actually got them all. So press F3 and drag them all. Make sure they all come. Good. So what we can do now is just chamfer these a little bit. So chamfer, and just give them a very small chamfer. Okay. Now let's try a turbo smooth modifier here. Alright, perfect. Now we've got little holes in our fan. Now you can edit these and make them a little better, but honestly those aren't bad. Or you can have more segments. This is just a nice little way of doing it. So let's go to our editable poly here for a second. And let's grab, using our circle selection, all the inside polygons there, with the exception of the topmost area right here. Okay, and let's just drag those down a bit, just so we get a bit of a, oops, I think we have lost a few here. Let's just re-grab those. Alright, and there we go. Just make sure you got everything when you're dragging. Perfect. So let's just drag those down a bit, just to get a bit of contouring almost in our final model. Alright, there we go. So that's the main body of the fan. Now we can work on the actual fan blade pieces. So let's go to a cylinder here, and there are about 5 blades in this fan if I had to guess. So we're actually going to use a tube for this. So go from the center of your fan out to about there, in and a little bit. So we kind of created this little shape right here. Okay. Now what we need to do is we can use the slice feature, and we can slice a certain radius. So if we get our little calculator out here, there are 360 degrees in a circle. We need 5 blades, so 72. So if we slice from 72, we'll have a perfectly shaped slice, which is exactly what we want. Actually, we're going to go from 70. That way we have a little gap when we do this, okay? And if you turn the segments on, you can see we have quite a few segments, so we can probably get rid of some of those, maybe bring it down to 5, seems about good. Okay, so let's convert that to an editable poly here. Actually, before we do that, let's get rid of the height segments too. Okay, so now we've got one of our fan blades beginning to take shape. So grab this middle one here, as well as, I'm going to say, these bottom ones, and let's extrude these kind of simultaneously. I guess we can do it from the local normal of the polygon, that way it kind of goes out. Alright, and that looks pretty good to me. Now we can grab this here and just kind of drag it down. Okay, now we're going to isolate the selection here for just a second, just so we can work a little easier. Alright, and let's grab these top polygons here, and we're just going to extrude them just a little bit, just like that. Okay, and we're also going to grab the side here, connect, and we're just going to give one segment and slide it all the way over the end. And we're going to do the same on the other side, so just connect and slide it all the way over to the other end. Alright, perfect, just like that. Now what we can do is let's actually apply a turbo smooth here and see what we've got. Alright, so you see we got a little bit of work to do. So let's grab our shape again, go to our polygons, and let's grab sort of these ones. Now let's extrude them. Oops, watch out, we already extruded the top, so we don't need to do that again. Alright, and there's a couple ways you can do this, but this is sort of my favorite. So grab that edge and make sure you grab the edge over here. And let's extrude those a little bit. Perfect. So now we should have a bit more of a defined shape. And now we can bring this little bit right here out. All right, so let's extrude that. And watch out, because the vertices will decide to move on you. So just even them out using your little tools here. Alright, and now what I'm going to do, just to make my life a little bit easier, is we're going to rotate this just so it's almost as straight can be. Okay? That'll just make modeling it a little bit easier for us. Alright, so there we go. We've now got our geometry, and we can fix it a little bit more. So just sort of bring this up like this, and that looks pretty good to me. So now we've got a flat face from which we can start working on. Now what we probably should do here is let's check out the turbosmooth to see what we've got. Alright, perfect. So let's see, that'll be rotating like that. It'll swoop down, and this will enter directly into the fan blade. So we can extrude this a couple times. Alright, and go in here, and let's just grab these, press R, go into your view here, and we'll just scale them so it's straight. Alright, do the same with these, so just scale them, and then drag them up a little bit. Oops, it looks like we grabbed one extra vertex there, so undo that real quick. You don't want to grab extra vertices if you can avoid it. Alright, there we go, perfect. So move that up a bit, and we'll just manually position these few vertices right here. Alright, there we go. So now we've got the main portion of the, the bit that extends from the fan. Alright, now one of the other things you're going to notice is if we go to our polygon mode here, let's grab this polygon and this polygon, and we're going to extrude them out just a bit. Okay, this is sort of where the main, I guess they're little holding bolts comes out. Alright, and you can grab that edge and then grab the edge over here, and we're just going to extrude those out just a little bit more. Okay, and then one little extrude. There we go. This will just give us some little rounded areas where we can bolt these to the actual fan portion. Alright, next let's sort of make a design here and see what we can do to make this a little more visually appealing. Let's grab this and connect it twice with no slider pinch. Okay, and now we can grab, let's see, these polygons right here, and let's extrude them out. Okay, and then in the vertex mode, we can just, let's see, maybe move them over a little bit. Actually, grab them both, press R, and we'll just scale them out. Grab the other ends and maybe scale them in just a tad. Okay? Now we can, let's extrude them again. Okay, and then we'll make these actually a little skinnier, I think. Kind of like that. And maybe drag those out and make them a bit skinnier. Okay, now what we can do is let's actually grab these, and you could use a symmetry modifier for this as well. In fact, we probably should. Let's do that. So let's grab these polygons here, delete them, and let's shift this in a little bit. Press R, and we'll scale that. Okay, now apply a symmetry modifier, and you gotta find the correct axis here. So it looks like the X is what we want. Go to your mirror location, and well, actually, we won't apply that because our scene is a bit odd, so we're just going to carry on with what we're doing. So now let's just grab this end piece right here, and ensure that your lines aren't crossing when you do this, because it will tend to happen with the way our angles are created. Okay, so grab your piece and let's do a hinge from edge, and this piece right here will be our edge. We're going to do a 90 degree, and we're going to do, let's see, 4 edges. Okay, let's do the same over here. So hinge from edge, pick your hinge, 90 degrees and 4. And now what we can do is, let's grab that, and we can bridge these. Okay, and to give it a little more visual interest, we're gonna select the lines in here, connect, give it 2 connections, and pinch them so they're about the same width as the piece in there. So now we can grab that and that, that and that, and bridge those. Okay, there we go. So we have this sort of structure here, and if we turbo smooth it, you see what we get. So sort of a nice organic, fan structure. I'm actually going to bring these in just a bit. I think it's a bit too long. Okay, that should do for now. We can always edit it later. Now let's simply model a fan blade for this. So we're going to start off with just a box, and we're going to make it a little bit bigger. So let's see, sort of about here should do. Oops, sorry. So kind of like that, and you can make all the things 0 for now. We're going to adjust them all. Let's convert it to an editable poly. Let's go into this viewport here. Now the first thing we want to do is line it up so we have a little bit of a gap between the largest point on the fan connector. Kind of like that. Alright, now let's grab this, connect, and let's give this about, I don't know, 8 connections should be good. Now let's begin scaling this so we get, somewhat of a fan blade shape. So fan blades, you can have a whole bunch of different kinds. We're going to make ours maybe scale out a bit. Alright, kind of like this. Maybe come back in. Okay, so that's good. And you can use any fan blade you want as a reference. It doesn't really matter, what you do there. And the only trick here is to make sure that the ends are sort of visually appealing. So let's connect this with maybe 5 segments should be good. You always want to have an end, especially on these fans. So kind of come up, maybe come in a bit, and then go back out. Okay, that'll just give it something sort of cool that you can work with. Maybe something like that. There we go. And then we can bring this and just scale it in like so. So now what we can do is, alright, so that looks pretty good as a fan blade. So now what we can do is maybe just extend it out a bit, just get it a bit longer. Okay, maybe something like that. Alright, so that looks pretty good for a fan blade. Now let's end isolation mode here. Go to our perspective and let's see how we're doing. So obviously we need to increase the size of this pretty drastically. So these things usually extend sort of, out to about here, okay? Let's grab those as well and just scale everything out, make it a bit fatter. Something like that should do good. Now grab these, drag them out, increase the width. Alright, and lastly do this one. And increase the width of that as well. There we go. Now you get a kind of a nice larger base for the fan blade. And so bring our fan blade down here. Let's press R and just scale the entire thing. Okay? Now if we go into our front viewport, you can see about the length of the fan blade. Now I guess actually here you can't. So let's Press E, shift drag this 90 degrees, okay? So if we go in the left-hand viewport, now you can see our fan blade, as well as, let's line it up first, just so we can get it right. So it's going to be about here, will be right, and the fan blade itself is going to be a bit big, so you bring it in to about here. Alright, so right about here looks to be good. And we can scale it a bit thinner there. Okay, and now we can delete this piece right here. So that's going to be our primary fan. Now what we can do is go to our edit poly mode, select all the polygons, go to the front mode here, F3, and deselect all the internal polygons, and extrude these just a little bit, just like so. Okay, now apply turbosmooth. Right, one iteration should do the trick, so go to P for perspective, and you can see now we have a nice fan blade, maybe even two, just to sharpen it up a little bit. And now what we want to do is just edit this to where it again matches our fan. So you can do show end result here just to make it a little easier for us. So bring it out. You can bring these up a little bit, something like that. And that should be about perfect for what we require. Maybe even, oops, sorry about that. Maybe even bring it up a little bit more, just kind of to here, and then bring this out a bit. All right, excellent. Now, that's basically the hard part of the fan. So let's go into our front view here, F3, and just shrink this. Actually, the left view will be a little easier, I think. Press W to move, and let's move this down just so it matches that right there. Excellent. Now that we have this, let's pretend this is the center point. So click here, and let's align this exactly where we want it. So we can go to the top viewport and just make sure that it's almost perfectly aligned. All right, and we look actually pretty good. So what we can do is click on our fan blade, effect pivot only, center to object, or sorry, align to object, and click that object. Okay, so now when we rotate that, you'll see, oops, sorry about that. So what we want to do is hit effect pivot only on our fan blade there, and hit the align tool, and just click on the X, Y, and Z position there. Okay, and then this should already be good to go. So now, if we rotate these, you can see we can basically shift right around here. Okay, so now in our previous calculation, we figured out that 360 divided by 5 is about 72. So we're going to give this rotation of about 70. Okay, make these instances, and let's do 4 of these. So now we should have perfectly placed fan blades, are really, really close to it. Now what we can do is press E, and turn off your angle snap, and just manually align these, just to give them each a little bit of a gap. Okay, and we'll actually hide this plane for a second. All right, so grab that, and just drag it over a bit. Alright, and then this one last. Perfect, there we go. So now you can see we've sort of got our fan is beginning to come together. We can click this, and let's actually unhide all. Alright, go back to our front viewport here. Let's select all of the fan blades, and just shift drag, or click and drag it just up to where about it matches. All right, so now you see where we sort of have this, which is actually not a bad fan in all of itself, but we need a few more things here to finish it off. Let's start by making a line, and we'll sort of start from here and just kind of drag out these shapes. Alright, that we're seeing. Curve it up and make it flat and bring it back down. So we can actually don't want to, well, yeah, we want to close the spline, I guess. Now what we can do is use the lathe modifier. Okay, and drag the axis over to where it should be, kind of around about here. Okay, 32 segments should be perfect. Let's convert that and make it an edit poly. Now the topmost section here, you'll see we have a bunch of different little lines. Now that's not exactly what we want, so let's grow that. Actually, we'll just select all the top and deselect all the little edges there if we can. Let's see what we can do here. Oops, press Q for selection, and then let's deselect all the things in the bottom there. So now we should just have the topmost edge. So now what we want to do is just inset that a little bit, and we can drag it down. Okay. Basically what we're wanting to do here is scale this in. I guess we missed a little gap there. So go back to our lathe, delete the edit poly, go to our lathe axis, and bring this in just a little bit. There we go, just so we weld the core. I'm just trying to make sure we're actually welded. And we look to be pretty close. So let's see. Well, I actually don't know if I want to do it this way. Yeah, that probably is the way we should do it. Okay, so edit poly. Oops, not edit mesh. Edit poly. Alright, edit poly. And grab your things here. We can, I guess an easy way of doing this would be clicking here, ring, control click the polygon, and let's delete that, as well as select this core here, and we can delete the core. There should be some vertices here on the bottom that aren't welded, so let's hide our reference image here. Okay, go to these little vertices here and just weld. Alright, so they should all be happily welded there. On the top, select the outer ring here and press cap. Now from this we can just do some creative beveling to get this to match. So just sort of bevel, and we can just follow the curve basically of our fan base here. And you can use extrudes too, and press R and scale it in if you're having a little bit of trouble. Sometimes it is a bit more difficult than you'd like. All right, maybe one more should just about do it. Kind of here, R, and scale it in. So there we go. Now we have our sort of dome shape for our fan. And next, let's just do a cylinder here. We will unhide all, press F3 so we can see what we're doing. Let's hide this real quick. Alright, so we just need to make this shape right here. So let's do a cylinder. I guess in the top view is the best place for it. Okay, press W, and let's shift drag it down here. Okay, make the radius about the same size, make the height pretty skinny here, and convert it to an editable poly. 18 sides is fine. Now we're just going to use beveling to create this shape. Alright, so just sort of bevel in, bevel out, give it some creative inspiration almost. Okay, and let's go down here. It looks like we have sort of a little thing here. Kind of comes in a bit, extends down. We have another little segment right here, and then that's basically it. Okay, and on the top you want to just inset that a little bit. Okay, apply turbo smooth, and that should be just about good for that. Okay, so unhide all, and we can, I think at this point, well, we don't want to quite delete it yet. Let's make a sphere. We're gonna make a little sphere right here. Okay, you can give it about 8 segments. It doesn't have to be very big. This is just what we're gonna use to make the little chain. Actually, let's decrease the size of it. Kind of about here. Okay, and sort of align it up, and let's just do that, and we'll give it maybe 40 copies of it, and then just delete it to about the right size. Perfect. Alright, and that should be just about pristine. Now what we want to do is grab those same little things, shift drag up here, and just place them in there. Alright, now what we can do is get a sphere and create a sphere right here. Press R and scale it up, kind of like that. And you can give it 32 segments for this one. Apply an FFD 4x4 to it. Using the top control points, just scale those down a bit and scale the middle ones down. That way you get sort of a teardrop shape, which will be basically the little pull string. And let's shift drag it over to this one as well. There we go. Okay, so our fan is definitely coming along here. One of the things we should do is grab the little bolt we made earlier. So this one right here. Let's apply turbo smooth, just to smooth it up a bit. And let's shift drag it out. Press E and rotate it exactly 90 degrees using angle snap. Alright, and let's hide sort of a lot of our different elements here. Okay, we'll hide this. Now, probably should have done this a bit ahead of time, but it doesn't really much matter. As long as you can position things, you're fine. So we're just going to position this sort of right here. Go into your vertex subobject mode for your editable poly, and just bring it, well, we'll position one of these perfectly. So let's just drag it over here. Okay, that should do. And now let's select that and hide unselected. Okay, so now what we should be able to do is edit this to where the center is centered and this is right at the edge. Alright, and maybe for the symmetry, bring the mirror a bit higher, just like that. Perfect. Now we can simply drag this, and we're going to position one of these on every single one of the fan blades. So unhide all, and then rehide these two elements. Okay, grab this, and just in your top viewport, you can shift drag these and just position them. Now, I would recommend doing this when you're actually copying them. It would make it a little bit easier for you, but doing it this way gives a bit more realism because holes are never perfect. So you can do this. Alright. A couple more to go here. Alright, there we go. Go back into perspective here. Let's unhide all. All right, and the last thing we want to do here is, let's see, there should be a cylinder inside, so let's hide the selection for a bit there, get rid of the grid, and let's create a cylinder right in here. Actually, we can just use this one, should be work perfect. Okay, drag it up, press R, and we can just scale it up like so, just so it fills up most of the boundaries here. And it should already be an editable poly. So go into our vertex subobject mode here. Alright, press W and move this down just to where it matches sort of the bolts on the fan blades. So you just get this little something like this. Okay? And one of the things I think we actually want to do is let's grab this, grab our vertices here. I'm thinking we sort of want to bring it in a bit. Do I want to do that? I think I do. Well, not really, though. Alright, just trying to think this through to where we won't have too many problems. So I think if I grab this and I go to local, so I move it on the local axis, drag it back a little bit. Grow, I guess. Alright, there we go. Well, no, that's not what I want to do. I really should just delete that overall. I don't think that's helping us. The look of the fan, not that much matters. It looks pretty good, but I know what I can do. Okay, so grab this polygon that we had created here, bevel, and let's bevel it outward till it's about the width of those bolts. Okay, bevel it down a bit, and then bevel it in a bit more. Alright, now if we apply turbosmooth to that, you'll see we get sort of a nice smooth transition there. And actually, let's go to vertex here and grab that, loop it, press W, and just drag it up a bit. And then grab the inner edge here, loop, press R, and we'll scale it up just a tad. Okay, just to make the transition a bit more seamless. There we go, now we've got a decent look. Press W and just drag that just so it's above. Excellent. And now what we need to do is let's just drag that here. And we can go to our polygon mode, grow it a couple times, shrink it one more, delete, and we'll recap that. Press R to scale it inward. Okay. And then we can just grab this from the view here. Alright, and make it a bit longer, kind of about here. Alright, press R and just shrink it just to where it's about a little smaller, kind of to here. Excellent. Now if we, let's see, why did this get moved? I believe it was an editable poly that was getting affected. So we'll just drag it back to where it should be, sort of up here. And then turbosmooth. Oh crap. Oh, let's undo some things here. Alright. let's just grab this little sphere right here, shift drag, make a copy. And now we can do what we were initially attempting. So press R, scale it up to about there. Go to your editable poly in your vertex sub-object mode. Grab these and simply drag them down a bit. Alright, now unhide all. And I think we're about good. So let me just grab this, maybe drag it a bit closer there. And I think that should do for a ceiling fan. Alright, so let's just make everything gray here. Alright, there we go. So you can use that in basically any model you want, and it should come out pretty awesome. I think I might just decrease the size of that just a tad. It seemed a bit too big to me, even though we were following the image. Sort of good just to always, you know, edit things and make them your own. Alright. So there we go. So I hope you guys enjoyed the fan model. If you have any questions, you know, feel free to... Ooh, wait. No, we're not done. This needs to be dragged down so we can see all of our pretty work. There we go. So now that'll be it for the fan model. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. And if you want to ever make any additions to this, you know, it's really easy. Like for example, I would probably, in fact, definitely move these sort of outward like that. There we go. Looks a lot better. Alright, so now let's cover the basics of shading our fan. So here's kind of the image that we're going to come up with in the end. And I'm just going to do a quick rundown of how I created the three simple materials in this scene. So I'm going to go over here and show you. So the primary material for the lamp is going to be a V-Ray two-sided material. Now this is composed of both a front and a back side, and I have them both set to the same V-Ray material with a transparency of 60%. And this is so the light actually shines through the material as there's a V-Ray light inside. Now this glass material is quite simple. I've just used a tan diffuse color, you know, kind of a darker eggshell, a reflection of 40 in the grayscale value, and a glossiness of 0.6. I've also upped the subdivisions here to 16. That way we can ensure that the shadows are nice and crisp. We don't have to worry about blurriness. Okay, so that's the main material there. Just assign this glass material to the front and the back. Now for our fan blades, what I've done is Googled a simple image here. Let me actually view the image. So it's just going to be a simple wood grain image. You can use any image you like. I would suggest finding one with kind of a long vertical grains. And then I just applied it to a V-Ray material here, made the reflect a 42 value in the grayscale to give it some decent reflections, blurred it out to about 0.7 to give it this sort of diffused reflection value, and I increased the subdivisions to 32 just to ensure that we get a smooth transition between the reflections. Okay, and that's for the fan blades, which is this material here. Now the last material I created was the main body of the fan, which is quite a simple material as well. So it starts off with a basic V-Ray material, and in the reflect slot I have 134 to give it a pretty decent reflection. I have the H glossiness. I unlocked it by pushing the L button at 0.8, and that will just increase the shadow or the reflections here, and the glossiness set at 0.85 to give it that sort of blurry feel. Subdivisions are also at 32. This enables the material just to be a little more realistic and have less noise in the image. And one of the other things I did was I found a picture of brushed metal. So if we bring that up here, let me just view the image. you can see it's a very small image of just some streaks. You can find this anywhere on Google. Just Google brushed metal. And I thought this was a bit light, so I added a color correction. So if you just go into Maps, Standard, Color Correction, that'll create this color correction here. And I linked the bitmap to the color correction just by dragging along here. And I just toned down the brightness just a bit, just to give us a bit darker feel. And then I linked that directly into the diffuse map here. Okay? And this is applied to all the remaining elements of the fan. So the fan base, you know, the little dangly pull strings, as well as the light holder and the fan blade holders. Okay? As for the wall material, it's just a very simple sort of eggshell color, no reflection, 8 subdivisions, just very basic, just to give it something to reflect off of. I also have another version of this fan, which is also an option, and that is sort of like this, which is an oil rubbed bronze fan, and it's just a darker tone, you know, for a different type of setting. And to do that, I created this rubbed bronze material, which has a very dark brown in the diffuse slot. It has a value of 80 in the grayscale for the reflect slot, and it has a glossiness of 0.75. Okay, and that's just about all there is to that. It's just a very basic material. There's no bump or anything. So, you know, you can kind of have either that image, or you can have, you know, this image, whichever you choose. They're just for different scenes. Now you'll probably notice on this image here, there's sort of a blur going on, as well as some motion blur, so field of view and motion blur. And the way I did that, just in case anyone's curious, is I have a V-Ray camera set up in here, or actually just a physical cam now, and I have 4 lights in my scene. Now these are just sphere lights with a multiplier of 6, color at the default, and I have 1 additional light here, which is a multiplier of 6 and sort of an orange color using a temperature of 4000 here. And I have 1 additional light, if we just hide the geometry with Shift G, which is a multiplier of 2 and a color of 4000, right in the middle here. Now on my camera, what I did was I pressed Enable Depth of Field, and that allows us to get sort of this, you know, blurred in the background and sharp in the foreground image. And I adjusted the aperture number as well as the focal length until it sort of kind of comes right in here. So everything in this little area right here will be in focus, and everything out will be out of focus. And I also pressed Enable Motion Blur here on the camera rollout to ensure that we get that motion in the fan blades. Now it doesn't happen automatically. So if you see, if I scrub through here, I have my fan blades rotating. Now it's quite simple. I just selected all of my fan blades, okay, pressed E, and then I basically just rotated them. So if you select all of them, let me just do that quickly. All right, and that one. So if you have them all selected, you'll see they rotate about the center. Now what you do is you press Auto key, and then you press the Set Key button. You just rotate them, you know, whatever you want, 300 degrees or so. Actually, you move this, then rotate it 300 degrees or so, and then between those 2 points, you'll see you have fan motion. And I found it best to put them about 60 frames apart, so 2 seconds of animation. So it takes 2 seconds to go basically a full 360 degrees, and that gives me the appropriate motion blur for the scene. Okay, so that'll about wrap it up for the texturing phase. It's nothing difficult. I just wanted to have the textures ready to go just so I could more easily explain them to you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments, and I will see you guys next time.